So far, I think everything is looking really good on this poppy. One thing that I really like is that the orange, and actually the really deep red areas are a great complement for those greens. So both of them together have really made the values and the saturated colors really jump out. So far we're on the right track. Obviously, I still need to get in some dark lines there and right in there. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this around and get those lines in there built. And the same thing with this area. So we're just going to keep building up those lines and the colors in the last few leaves. But my goal is to make them that value, especially down in these deeper, darker areas. Maybe a little bit right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it around. One of the reasons why I'm turning it around is it's much easier for my hand to pull those lines than to try to push against it. So I'm going to zoom in. See a little bit more. There we go. Okay, we can see my colors. All right, so let me turn my image around. Oh, it's going to be much easier too to make these beautiful wavy lines. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and start over here. And I'm going to go with my 2-aught brush. And my color is dry, but I'm okay with that because now I know it's not going to be too watery. So adding just the right amount of water to get it to the consistency I want. And I think that's about good. So what I'm going to do is just lightly touch the surface of the paper. Of course, that wasn't lightly right there, was it? That's okay. I'm going to come over here and pick up some of that darker color. Now maybe a little bit more red. Now as we head over in this direction, we have a lot more orange colors. So not only are we adding in these lines, but we're also having a couple of different values going on in here. So we have the lighter areas and we have the darker areas. And that really makes a huge difference when you're painting with just one color. You need some excitement going on. So the easiest way to do that is by adding in some darker values. And of course, the last thing I need to do is pick out some of those highlights. The other thing I'm doing too is picking up some of that orangish yellow and just lightly adding in some of those lighter lines that we're seeing. And then of course picking out some of those highlights in between. That's going to look really good. Okay, now let's go over here. This really needs some work. And everything I've been doing, again, is on dry paper. And I'm making sure my lines are flowing with the edges, I should say. Put in a little bit darker value right in there. Up some of that burnt sienna. Back to some of that red. And here's where I really want that burnt sienna color. Right where we're coming into those darker areas. Add some more red. Now I'm keeping that area a little bit light right through the center because then we're going to go over it with the scrubber brush and smooth things out and lighten some areas up. Let's go with a little bit more red right in that area. There we go. And picking up a little bit of that burnt sienna. I think I'm going to put just a tiny, tiny drop of that blue right at the base there so we can pick up some of the value. And then I'm going to go right over the top of it. Just going to drop in some red. And then now this area right in here is pretty dark. And then of course there will be highlights we're going to have to pick out. See how much easier is it for my hand to go this direction and pull lines that are just a little bit, tend to flow a little bit better. See what a huge difference that made? When I added that darker color right against that leaf. And when we go back and we pull out the highlight there, that's going to give us some differentiation between that petal and that one. I keep saying leaf. Actually, I'm going to go grab my number 2, and I'm going to go back over here. Let's get some orange in there. That is just way too dull. There we go. Even maybe a little drop of red in there. There we go. Okay, back to my small brush. Just getting in those darker lines. Adding in some more red. And again, we'll pull out those highlights. Let me go back to this area. I'm looking at that area and then I'm comparing it with this area right here, this petal, and I've noticed that it's actually a really deep red in that area. I'm going to leave that alone because what I want to do there is pick out those highlights. So now let's come over and let's work on this dark area. What I had done was I forgot a leaf, actually. So I will put that back in when I am done. Let's go to my 5. Let's go to my 5-aught. Now some intense red. Build up the edge of that petal. And right along this edge, it's pretty red, so that's also going to help with that value change. Now we'll add a little bit of darker values and ooh, this petal's turning out pretty good. Well, let's see, while I'm here, let's really build the value in those little lines right there. It's just interesting sometimes how you have to kind of go back and forth. You're always adjusting for value. You never get it right on the first time. Although, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe there are some people out there that are really good at that. I tend to not be one of those people. It takes me a while sometimes. Okay, now I'm going to come in here. And I'm just making some squiggly lines. And then once I'm done with that, I'll be able to go in there and blend everything out and take that scrubber brush and really build some color. Just grabbed a little bit of blue. I'm going to grab a little bit more blue. Okay, let me turn it back around. Let's get a look at it from this direction. Ooh, oh, look at that. Okay, I'm turning my image around so I can see where I'm at. All right, I think basically at this point, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see how it looks with the little bulb and the stems. I think that's turning out very pretty. I think one thing that it really needs now is definitely, I need to fix that green right there. That green should be coming all the way up into there. So I left that off. So I have to correct that, but I want to do that when this is dry. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to smooth out and pull out some highlights. And, well, actually, while I'm here and letting that dry, let's go ahead and darken up that center of this little bulb that's getting ready to open up. And as I'm looking at it, it looks kind of like a dull bluish green. So I'm going to put some water in there and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my red. And then I'm going to pick up some of that blue. I think it needs a little bit more red. Because you know what it is? That's where it's going to open up. And so basically what we're seeing is the fact that there is a little bit of the petal that you're kind of seeing through that opening. Okay, pretty good. I think that looks good. I think I need to take a little bit of the red and put it right along this area. And let's take a little bit of blue And a little bit of yellow. It's right under there. And now a little bit of red. Let's go back under this area. And a little bit of yellow and blue. Back up in there. And one other thing I think I need to do is I've got to get some darker darks in there. Like some dark greens for that little edge right there. And then of course I have to fix the that little leaf. And in the meantime, let's drop some blue in there. Okay, now I can go ahead and dry, and then we'll come back and we'll do all the finishing touches. Let's see. So I'm gonna get my scrubber brushes out. And I'm gonna use my small ones. I'm gonna use my number 2, my Dick Blick Wonder White. These are my favorite scrubber brushes. I have tried all kinds of scrubber brushes, and these are the only ones I feel that are firm, but not too firm, and they're nicely rounded around the edges. So when I hold it perpendicular, I can make nice, beautiful lights in my backgrounds. And then I have a number 2 that is really old. Had to repair it quite a bit. And I actually wrapped tape around it and I cut it to make it very small so that I can use it on a lot of different areas and get into really tight spots. And then I have one that is an oil brush, just from a local art store. It's just a cheap oil brush. And I did the same thing. I wrapped it with tape and then cut it. And so these are the 3 that I'm going to be using. So the other thing I want to do is make sure that I have plenty of paper towels so that I can lift up the water and the paint as I'm scrubbing. And also my water is extremely clean. I don't want to be adding color back in, so I'm going to move my water over. And let's see, let's zoom in a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. And I think I'm gonna start probably with this one, because there's some area in here that I want to soften, and I want to get out that line that I'd put in earlier. So lots of water on the surface. And I'm just being very careful, lightly moving my scrubber around. Now, in this area, because I mostly wanted to just soften that color, I think I'm not going to lift up. I think I'm just going to let that stay where it is. I have noticed one area that I think needs a little bit more color, so I'm going to go over and grab some red and drop it right in there. Oh, something's on my... Ooh. Well, now you're going to see me fix a mistake. There was some dark red on my brush, and I was not being careful, and look what I did. I made a little spot. So I'm going to take my scrubber brush and there we go. Lightly fix that area. Boy, I really need to do some work on there with some color. I'll have to come back to that little spot. I mean, it's not bad, but I just didn't get that, the real crinkly edge there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. And now I'm going to come over to these areas right here where we're really seeing a beautiful white area. So I want to go ahead, I'm scrubbing carefully, and I'm using my oil brush. And then I'm going to go a little bit more and then just come down a little bit. One thing I don't want to do is make it a one solid even line. And look at that. It just makes a huge difference. Let me soften this little area down here. And actually, I'm going to take my Dremel tool and I'm going to go along and I'm going to pick out a nice white line right along that edge, right along there, because I don't think my brush can do it. It's just not, won't make a thin enough line, but that's okay. I can come over here, lighten that area up a little bit. And that's really what this needed. It just needs a couple of areas of highlights to be lifted out. Let's see, there's one right here. So I just lifted that color up with my brush just a bit. Now I'm going to kind of leave that alone, and I'm going to let, except for right here, where it's right against that darker edge. I'm just going to lighten it just a little bit more. And there, now it makes it look like that leaf is kind of turning. Blowing off those little bits of hair. Now I want to get right down along that edge. Now we have a nice value change, and I really like that. And there's another one right up here. It's just nice and softly lit. Now back to my number 2. Lots of water. Just softening out some of those lines. Notice I'm not lifting up any of the color. Right now I just want to soften. Especially because right in this area, it's a little bit lighter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my hard-edged oil brush and I'm going to make some of these edges disappear. Now it almost looks like the edge of the flowers are kind of blending in with the background a little bit. And I'll do that, I'm going to do that along the edge of some of those petals too. I'm going to get rid of this pencil mark right on this edge. And I'm also going to soften just a little bit right along this edge. And same thing over here. I'm going to pick up that pencil line. I'm going to let that edge almost disappear. Again, getting rid of some of that pencil mark. Now, you may not have to worry about that if you were really light with your marks. But again, because I'm teaching and it's not my painting, you need to see where I'm at. Okay, let's get again, soften up some of these areas and pull out some of the highlights. another little light area. Now, right in this area, I'm definitely going to have to pick up some of those highlights. Right along here, you almost can't even see that dark area. It's almost like that light has just completely obliterated it. So I'm just going to very softly get that edge back there. And then right in here, I'm going to start coming out with the white. But I think what I'm going to need to do is actually use the my Dremel tool. So I think I might stop for a moment here and get that out, and then I'll be able to get those little white lines in there a little bit better. Yeah, this little area definitely needs some help. I need to get that green put in there. So actually I'm going to scrub out a little of this area so we can get our little green leaf back. Okay, I'm going to back out a little bit. That's where it looks really pretty right there, is where those highlights, I've just kind of pulled those back out. Kind of lends a glow. And then of course, you need to fix that edge right there. What I had done was, as I was looking at it, I realized that there was a little beautiful little flap of, I don't know, of an edge of a leaf, and it was very light. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back in there and then go again and fill in a little bit of some dark. Again, I'm just kind of going back and forth as I see things. So I'm going to get this dried and we'll be back. All right, let's go ahead and let me zoom out a little bit. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish up these little areas, getting out those whites, and we need to build a little bit more value, darker value right in this area. But we're getting there. Okay, so you saw that I had scrubbed out. So normally what I'll do is I'll go back over it with just a plain old plastic spoon or a burnisher. If you have one, if you've ever done paper crafting, you can buy burnishers from your local art stores. They're little bone burnishers, and those work really good. All this is really doing is putting all those fibers back down that I picked up when I scrubbed out. Because remember, I scrubbed that area out because I lost all my little green leaves right in there, and the edge, I lost the edge of that turned down leaf. So I'm going to put those back in. Okay, so in the meantime, let's zoom in and let's go ahead, and I'm going to take this Dremel tool and I'm going to turn this at an angle. Actually, I think I'm going to turn it like this, and I'm going to turn my image so I can get those little itty bitty tiny white areas. Oh, so anyhow, my Dremel tool, it's a cordless Dremel tool, and I have all different kinds of tips that I can use with my Dremel tool, and this one is just a round sanding tip, so it won't dig in deep. It'll just skim the surface. Now, please do not do this if you're using 140-pound paper. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do this. It'll burn right through the paper. But 300-pound is definitely thick enough that you can do this. And then you can adjust the speed. Ooh, so I'm adjusting it down pretty low. And so I'm just gonna go. I'm just making those little tiny white lines that we can see. I'm going to turn it again. Turn it off for a sec while I switch my picture around. And honestly, I mean, if you really have to compare using masking fluid or using the Dremel tool, I actually prefer using the Dremel tool. Well, one of the reasons why is once you buy it, you buy it. With the Dremel tool, you can get all different kinds of tips, so you can do all different kinds of lines. In fact, I'm actually going to switch to an even smaller tip. The thing with masking fluid, though, is it's very expensive and you have to keep buying it. And sometimes it pulls the paper up, which is really annoying to me. This is another one of my favorite tips. It almost makes a really fine line, and that's kind of what I need. So I'm going to switch out this tip. Oops. There we go. I'm going to make sure this is... There we go. That's what I really wanted. Look at what a fine line that makes. Now I can get this nice fine line. Look at how nice and smooth that made it. Let's see. It's almost like a scratch board. I'm fixing those leaves that I completely lost. Okay, that's going to make that leaf look a little bit better. Boy, I'd really lost all those leaves. Look at how that just made that edge come right up on that leaf. Same with this little edge. Just imagine how creative you could get with this little tool. Okay, I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna zoom out. And then once I smooth all this down again with my spoon, then we'll fill it back in with some color. And in the meantime, while we've got the Dremel tool, let's go ahead and go back over here and pick out some of those little tiny lines the little hairs, and then we'll add some little white dots in at the base of those little hairs. So let me zoom in a bit. What a difference, right? Isn't that amazing what it does for those little hairs? All right, look at that. It really makes them just jump out at you. And I think we're probably okay in here. I can tell we need to darken a little bit right on the edge of those little hairs, and maybe a little bit right underneath the edge of this paper thin leaf. But so far so good. So I'm going to set that to the side, and I'm going to zoom out. And look at that. I think that is the coolest trick ever. I mean, look at how, let's zoom in just a little bit. Look at how it just made that stem just come alive. And this really looks 3D. Even when you go all the way over to here and you see where I put all those little tiny specks, it really makes it just come alive. So I'm pretty excited and happy about that. So now what I'm going to do is let's take my spoon. Again, let's go over. Let's go over everywhere that I've used the Dremel tool. Just areas that I'm actually gonna go back in with a little bit of color. So especially right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up some of this orangish yellow with just a little bit of that burnt sienna that I made. Now I'm gonna zoom in. I'm just adding a little bit of color. That way you can still see the lines, but we're just softening some of those edges. In fact, before I get any more of that dark value in, let's go ahead and get those leaves in. Let's make a little bit of, green. It's going to steal the edge of the plate right here so I can stay focused in. And I'm going to wick my brush a little bit. And yay! Oops. Let's add some yellow in there. And a little bit more blue. And now I need to make this, well, first of all, I need to make some more of my burnt sienna. I need to make it a lot thicker because one thing that I really need some dark. Right along those edges, and see how I was able to go right back over where I dremeled because I used my little spoon trick. Let's go a little bit darker. That's what we really needed. Now I'm going to, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to go back down over here now. Let's use some of that darker color. And just kind of dabbing around those little spots. Now I'm going to go back to my number 2. I'm going to grab some of that orangish yellow. You can't, let's see, so I'm grabbing some of that orangish yellow. Just coloring in some of those lines. And a little bit more of that dark color. Picking up some red. Just darkening some of these areas between those lines. Okay, let's back it up a little bit. Let's take some of this brown color, come right over these lines. And a little bit of orange. And there we go, just softened out just a tad. Getting some darker color, some of those areas next to those lines. Let's go in with a little bit more red. And much better. A little bit more. Just looking around and realizing I need to darken some of these areas up so we have plenty of value changes. Just making sure I've got enough color in there. I'm going to cover these up a little bit more. Very nice. Just a couple very fine lines. Look at how nice those deep dark colors, they just really came through. Made a huge difference. maybe a little bit more green in those areas. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow. Go right over that area. Okay, let's zoom out. Lovely. I'm very happy with this. I think this turned out really good. I love that I have some areas off the edge that are kind of disappearing into the paper. So we've got these beautiful, soft, flowing petals, yet some areas are a little bit more wrinkled on the bottom side. And then we come down into the stem and look at how beautiful all those little hairs worked out, and what it did when we added that Dremel tool in there and picked out some of those little spots, the little white and yellow hairs, and then picking it out of the stem. I'm going to call this done. I'm going to zoom out even more. I love it. I'm pretty happy with it, and I hope you all enjoyed painting this. And I really love seeing what everybody does with these tutorials. I think it's important. It's good feedback for me to see what everybody else is doing, and just so that I can make these tutorials better. So I would love to hear from you if there's anything that I can improve on, anything else that you'd like to see. I'm actually going to be starting on a series of beginner fruits, and so I'm pretty excited about that. So I have lots more tutorials you can watch, and I want to say thank you for watching this and following along. And again, I would love to see what you end up doing. So thank you for following, and I'll see you on another tutorial.